Jacob rather worked for 7 years for the hand of Rachel, and on the night of the wedding, the switcheroo took place. And the text that where we're leaving the story continues, but where we're leaving this section is, "Why have you deceived me?" I think that's so ironic and so interesting. You know, it's hard for us to read this with fresh eyes. We know the end of the story, and so therefore we build the story at the beginning because we know the end. But this morning as we read it, I'm going to ask you to try to, at the best of your ability, let's read it together as fresh as we can. And then I'm going to ask, there's little pieces of paper on your table, and I'm going to ask each of you to do something with that. You don't have to say anything. We're going to do a little activity together and have some fun with this story. So let's attempt, to the best of our ability, to read this story as if we were reading it for the first time, verses 12 through 25. Let's read it together.
They told Rachel, were we reading aloud, Mike? I'm sorry.
12 through 25.
Were we reading it aloud?
Yeah, read it. Yes, I want us to read it aloud together, but let's all pretend we're reading it for the first time.
And he had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and the son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. And as soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him, kissed him, and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all his sins.
Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older one was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel."
And Laban said, "It is better that I give to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me." And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her.
Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is complete, and I want to lie with her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob. And Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant.
And when morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you've done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?"
Okay, good, thank you. You read that really great, John. When morning came. All right, what I'd like you to do is take a piece of paper on. Let's get step 1. Everybody have a piece of paper, and you can use either side. I just cut these up, and what I'd like you to do is vote. And I'd like you to vote how you feel about this story. And there are 3 possibilities. You can vote 1, 2, or 3. And nobody's going to know what you vote. This is going to be, I'm just really curious on how we vote as a group. If you vote number 1, put a number 1 on your page, it's Jacob is getting what he deserves. This is where you feel justice has been served. We know the story of Jacob, and where you're feeling you line up with this idea that justice is being served. Number 2, if you vote 2, you're saying, no, that scoundrel Laban, that dirty dog, why did he pull this switcheroo on his, on this young man? Unknowingly. So that's your emotional response. Number one is he's getting what he deserves. Number two is that scoundrel Laban. And then number three is my response is, you can write something in there if you want, but it's just other. I have a different kind of response that neither line up with one or two, it's just three. So what I'd like to do, everybody vote? And Steve, could I ask you if you would pick these up and organize them, and in a few minutes I'll ask you, and then I'll go ahead and talk a little bit, and then I'm going to see how we vote. Okay, so let's all get them to Steve, and he's going to process it and give us. All I want to know is how many number ones, how many number twos, and how many number threes.
Put them in your secrecy sleeves here.
Secrecy sleeve.
There are many, many great stories in the Bible. This is one of them. And so my mind this week went to what makes a story a really great story. And of course, if you were to take a college class on this, you would learn that to write a great story, there are basically 5 elements. There's what they call the exposition, which is at the beginning. And then it's a pyramid. And then there's the rising action. And then there's the falling action. And then there's the aftermath of the story. So it's kind of like a witch's hat. And that's what makes it great, and that's what is how you design a story. But I was thinking about this in a little bit different way, and I'd like to share it with you. I too think that stories are built from building blocks, and you see them there, and there is a connection of those building blocks that the author of the story weaves together. Notice the blocks are interconnected. They're different colors, and there's different facets, little interjections. Think of really great stories or really great movies. There's little pieces that are added here and there, and you don't really know how they fit, but they fit. And you and I build an expectation. There's a rising action, just like you would learn it if you were, taking a college class. But there's a storyline like this. It doesn't necessarily need to be a straight linear line, but I think what is true, I know what is true of every story, it rises. As we read this story today, it rises. The actions rise. There is the emotion at the beginning and the exchange with Laban and Jacob. And we are caused to believe a certain thing about this relationship. That it's loving, it's real, it's a wonderful thing, and this older man is now helping out his younger man, and they're going to be, well, he's his uncle, and he's going to be his father-in-law, and so we're led to believe this, and so as these build, they build one after another. But this is where it really gets interesting to me. Because what happens in a really great story, and for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it the drop. Because it feels like a drop. Something happens. And what is it like when you're on a roller coaster and you're going, whoa! It's like a drop. Yeah. Wow! We all know that feeling. And that's what I think a really great story does. That drop evokes an emotional response from us. Something is drawn out of us for that story. Okay? And that's what I was trying to get us to do at the beginning, is to get from you to vote, to discern what is the emotional response that was evoking from you as you read the story. So I'm going to put this right here like this. This is a bracket, and this is evoke. That says evoke response. Yeah, that's really bad writing. My pen's not working today. My hand's not working today. Evoke response. That is what I think is the key. Now, there's an aftermath that happens, and we're going to go there later. But what makes a story, a really great story, is its ability to evoke this response, and that's what makes it memorable. Okay? So, from Steve, I'd like to just go back, and let's see how we voted. What type of emotional response came from this group this morning? So Steve, number one, how many number ones are there?
3 for number 1.
Okay, 3 number ones.
One response is very biblical. Reaped what was sown.
Okay, all right. All right, so there's 3 there. Okay, and then number 2?
Okay, number 2 is the winner with 6.
Okay. Okay.
But not a scoundrel is one of the comments.
Okay.
The rest are mute on that. And number 3 is 5.
Okay, so this, go ahead.
Of course, we have write-ins for number 3.
Right, right. And we won't, it would be interesting if we had time to do that, but we don't have, we're going to take that time. So this group is saying that, in the minority, it is justice is done. Some of us are saying justice is served. Reap what we sow. The majority is saying that dirty rat, as we read the story, that guy. And then number 3 is there some other type, and that it's a close second. My point in this is simply this, that sure, this story happened in real, in time, but the value of this story and the biblical stories is, as I read this and I respond in this way, what is this telling me about me? How I view reality. Do you see? For example, if you and I, responded with number 1, justice is done. You reap what you sow. What does that tell me about my view of life and of justice? What does it say? What is it in generally? What is that saying? And we're not right or wrong here. It's just, it's revealing what's inside of us. Jim?
Accepting responsibility for what's occurring.
And if we don't accept it, we pay for it. Yeah.
There was a long story. Barry Black was a chaplain for the United States Senate. Has a story about that is really kind of comical. The guy has a peanut butter sandwich every day and slams his lunchbox and curses that he just has it was a bologna sandwich. And every day he has a bologna sandwich and he's mad about it. And he's sitting next to him way up high on these beams. He says, why don't you tell your wife you don't like bologna? He said, I'm not married. He said, who makes your sandwich? He says, you do. And the point of the story was, any bologna in your life, you put it there.
Yeah. We all have a big bologna. Yeah, that's true. So, the idea being here that, okay, if I respond with, yes, justice is done, then that tells me kind of how I view things, that there is really high level of cause and effect in things. Now, it's not putting a value judgment on that at all, but, gal, if we kind of take that idea a little bit deeper, we get what we deserve. Well, is that always true? In the case of what Christ did for us, that's certainly not true. We don't deserve grace. And so there's There's more complexity to just merely a cause and effect mechanical relationship in life. Sure, generally true, but it's to cause us to go a little bit deeper and to cause us to think, gee, how do I view this thing? Do I always get what I deserve? No, and no. You know, is life fair? Well, no, and yes. Number 2, that's scoundrel Laban. Now, what would be, if you voted for, and this was the majority, what does this tell us about us? What does this tell you about you? What is this saying on a let's go a little bit deeper here. Yeah, that dirty, rotten scoundrel, but yeah. What is it? What is this? What's that?
Judgments. Making judgments.
Yeah. Okay. We're making a judgment. You know, we don't have the luxury when we're reading a story to be really thinking about it. All we can do is respond at that moment. Yes.
First of all, we don't know the whole story. We only know one sentence.
Yeah. And there's going to be more after
There could
story.
have been a lot
Yeah.
of other stuff going on at the same time.
Okay, judgment. Isn't that, would you guys say that that is true of you? And you don't have to respond. Is that there's this innate desire within all of us to respond and to respond in some way and to cast a judgment just so we can relieve ourselves out of attention? You know, I heard a is that not true? You know, and not only that, but is it not true that as we see the story develop, we probably put into that story things that have happened to us, similar, and then, yep, just to prove our point. Do you know what I'm talking about? How we do that? Well, Dick has brought out, gee, well, yeah, it shows that we're, casting a judgment. Okay, well, we can live with that. We can see. The question is that always the right thing to do? Yeah. How much do I jump to conclusions? Anybody work with that in here? Yeah. This wasn't designed to make you feel bad, by the way.
No, but I think you did point out that we should take this as a first reading.
Right.
So when I did put a 2 down, but because, and that's why I said not a scoundrel, because I've always felt that way, but that's the nice thing, what you're bringing up, we can rethink these things too.
Yeah.
And we need to rethink them in light of what Christ has done for
Yeah.
us. So,
In light of what Christ has done, that's
in
for
light
sure.
of it, yeah, we change, because I think also it's not just tension. I think it's fear, we often judge others.
Yeah.
Out of fear of what they, and we paint a picture about them, because we don't really want to look deeper.
And when we get into this story further, I purposely stopped it there because at the text that John read, why did you deceive me? It really raises a great question. And I purposely left it there. But we'll go on and maybe we'll read some more of the story. I was expecting, I was honestly expecting number 1 to be the majority. Because it tells me about me. I think that the typical reading of the story is that Jacob's getting what he deserves. But you guys see, what this is saying about the group is, you're a lot more grace-filled than I am. Ellen.
Actually, it's a combination of 1 and 2. Because yes, he's a scoundrel, and Jacob got what he deserved.
That really lines up with my experience of what life is about. It's not just simplistic. It gets pretty complex. Yeah, it sure does.
But fear is so big in what we do.
Yeah. Well, let's move to number 3 then, and we do have some time. I don't want to, those of you who responded, I don't know how to do it because I told you I wasn't going to read these, and now I don't want to read. Well, but they're They're anonymous.
They're
Okay.
anonymous.
Okay. So everybody okay with that?
You won't have to
I don't.
Let's read some of the other responses. I just would be curious.
Oh, thank you, Jack.
This is the third response, the
Your
other.
brother's gonna be mad.
That's right. Yeah, this one just says other.
Okay. Good, we got that.
Well, it says justice for number 1, Laban for number 2, and other for 3, and 3 is circled. So, lied and betrayed. Here's a blank one. Other. Yeah, we don't have many write-ins.
Okay,
but
all right,
I-
just other.
You know, if I had had time, I would have written on mine, but I was tallying.
That's a good one.
I think Alan summarized it pretty well. It's sort of like they're both scoundrels to me, and they're in a sense they're sort of eventually they'll each get what they deserve. But that's reading ahead.
Yes, it is. And, you know, my whole point, kind of a little timeout here, I have really had fun with this week. Just, what is this saying about me? You know, as I read this. It's impossible for us to read it with truly fresh eyes, because we've been told this story time and time again. But when we go back and we read things like this, what is it saying about us? And that's really, I think, a marvelous power of the Scriptures. Not only is it a true story, but it's a story that lives on, and we can learn about ourselves as we read this story. So next week, we'll move on, and we'll look at a little bit of the after story to the story. That's it. Finished a little bit early today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Thank
bet.
you, Mike.
Yeah.
This has never happened.